I think SquashSkills has always been about community. From those early days, we were born out of a Facebook page, right? And there's this common desire amongst all our members to get better, to improve. I think the sense of community is further cemented by the attendees on the camp. You know, it's so nice to go and turn up at a camp, and of the 30 people on there, 20 are returners, right? And everybody's hugging each other, you know, and I haven't seen you since the last camp, and these friendships and relationships are made. And then out of lockdown with the SquashSkills Training Club, the number of people that were just doing groups together, they were messaging each other on the side saying, are you doing this one? And making sure they're in the same group. So the sense of community has always been, you know, a really core part of what we do. The squash community is small, but it is tightly knit. And, you know, I think there's a group of players within SquashSkills who all have this desire to improve collectively. You know, we owe a huge amount of thanks to our members. You know, Paul Main, our first subscriber who signed up at the booth at the British Open with a cheque back in 2012, you know, he's still an active member today, and there's been a number of people that have just stuck with us the whole way through, and you know, we're immensely thankful for every single membership. We realise it's, you know, it can be a leap of faith for people saying, I'm going to go and try and learn squash online, and you know, those people that have stuck with us and supported us, you know, the business doesn't run without people, you know, putting that membership down and paying the recurring fee month after month, year after year. So we're hugely, you know, thankful to the community. And then beyond that, there's the community of professional players and coaches who continue to support us, who continue to want to produce content and help. So I think fundamentally SquashSkills is all about community in one way or another. And you know, it does feel like globally as a sport, we all have to lean in together. You know, the sport is too small to be trying to compete with each other, and I think we've all got to play to our strengths. And the federations need to do what they need to do, the PSA needs to do what they need to do, but we've all got to help each other out, just because it, you know, it is a limiting sport, and we definitely are facing challenges. It's interesting in different pockets of the world. I think if, you know, we recently got back from the States, and the sport is thriving, the sport is absolutely buzzing. You know, the junior circuit is so vibrant and growing. They have the biggest competitions in the world with the high school squash championships, and the number of players that are coming into the sport is just crazy, and the opportunity for coaches is mind-blowing. And you know, I think there's a little bit of a brain drain from some of the other nations with ex-professionals, you know, immediately flocking to the States because they have to, really, they're forced to, from you know, to have a successful coaching career. That's where, you know, where the cash is, isn't it? You know, cash is king. So I think it's very, very healthy in the States. And then I think, you know, here in the UK, I think COVID's, you know, hit us hard, and I see challenges at my local squash club with teams going from 5 in the Welsh League down to 1, and you know, we're not the only club that's facing those challenges. So, you know, I think there are lots of distractions now, and I think there's lots of other sports and e-gaming and, you know, things like that are distractions for kids. So I do think as a sport we do face challenges, but I also think organisations like the PSA are doing phenomenal work. I think you look at the health of the game and what the sport looks like and how we're showcasing the sport, I think we're in a phenomenal position. But there are undoubtedly challenges, courts closing, you know, in more of the traditional sport squash hotbeds, you know, the likes of Australia, England, Wales, Pakistan. You know, the sport definitely does face its challenges, but then in other countries like Hong Kong and India, Egypt's always been a, you know, such a strong hotbed, but you know, the sport's on the up. So I think it's a mixed bag, but equally I do think we've got to be mindful of the challenges we face. And you know, here in the UK, it's where I can speak with most experience. I think we need to do more at a grassroots level. You know, fundamentally we need to make it easier for new people to come into the sport and understand what they're doing. We need to take down barriers in that respect. We need to make it easier and more fun. We need to make sure people are using the right ball from the moment they step on the squash court. We need to use Squash 57 as a route into the sport, and we need to use it as a route out of the sport. We need to keep people on the squash court. But if you're going in using a smaller racket and a bouncy ball, what a great way for a junior to get their head around the sport. If your knees are starting to creak and your hips are starting to creak, as mine are, why not move over to Squash 57 or play a bit more Squash 57? later on. So I think we've got to embrace that. But fundamentally, the sport's got to be appealing. Clubs have got to be fun. I remember the Welsh junior circuit when I was playing, which is getting on for 25, 30 years ago. The sense of community then was amazing. We'd be down Maesteg Squash Club or Carmarthen Squash Club, and there'd be like hundreds of kids down there and all their parents, and it was just really, really fun and engaging. And I think that's absolutely crucial to the sport. We've got to support the grassroots. We've got to get more coaches being in place regularly. You look at the clubs that are doing well, they'll have a consistent coach there week after week, delivering sessions time after time. And that was what made Pontefract so successful. Malcolm was there day in, day out, over a course of years. And that process he had in place is what made Pontefract so successful, because he was there continually. And then those good players were in place, and then the younger players were able to get on court with the better players, and they were able to improve. So I think we've got to make sure the structure's there, but we've got to support the grassroots of the game. We've got to make it easier to learn the sport, and we've got to handhold newbies who are coming into the game and make it fun and accessible. Make sure they know what the rules are, make sure they know what ball they should be using, make sure they can get a good competitive game fairly on, and make sure they can take enjoyment from the sport. So I think that fundamentally is what we need to do. We need to make the sport appealing, and we've got to just support the grassroots of the sport. We've got to try and make coaching more appealing so that there's a pathway for people to make more cash and want to go on to become squash coaches, and then ultimately being able to bring more people into the sport. So I think the grassroots is absolutely crucial. I think you end up with a little bit of a gap that we're certainly experiencing now, where my parents got me into squash because they played squash. As the squash population shrinks, less parents are playing squash. That means less kids coming through. So you're in a bit of a vicious cycle. So we've got to do more to attract new players to the game at a junior level, but also appeal to that post-university demographic, make the game more fun, more social, run more tournaments where everybody's in the bar celebrating at the end of it. Everybody knows they're going to get that sense of community, and I think we've not catered for that age group from 18 to 35 particularly well. I think Masters is quite strong, juniors can be quite strong, but we need to do more as a sport for that age group, make it more fun, more social, more one-day tournaments, more best-of-3 tournaments. So I think there's lots of work to be done at a grassroots level, here in the UK, and those are the challenges we need to figure out. So I think the major challenges that we're facing, obviously court closures, and I think competing against other exciting opportunities. For kids, everybody's glued to a phone these days. There's other sports, draw people's attention. The Netflix, TV, instant gratification, it's all there. So we've got to make it appealing to go down to the squash club and run around and get hot and sweaty for an hour. That's our biggest challenge. I think we've also lost a chunk of people, around my age, where when I was coming through as a junior, there were loads of people my age playing, loads of parents playing, and I think there's a bit of a gap. So we've got to try and fill that void. We've got to make squash fun, and we've got to make it appealing. I think we've got to foster the sense of community, but we've also got to show that squash can instantly be fun. We've got to make it, much more exciting for a beginner to go on the court and get a workout. We've got to make it easier for them to get a workout. We need to make sure they're using the right ball. We need to make sure they know the rules. We need to make sure that they don't come to a squash court, get totally daunted, not have any rallies because they're using a double yellow dot, and then run off and never come back and play again, right? So I think what we're trying to do with our technology offering and the new beginner offering is just instantly make it much easier for players to know what they're doing, instantly take more joy from it. We want to give coaches the tools they need to run better sessions. We're trying to use the online coaching qualification in association with World Squash to qualify more coaches. So anybody who's a squash enthusiast can go and run fun and engaging sessions, regardless of how good you are at squash. If we can get more coaches qualified, more people on court running these fun and engaging sessions, we're going to end up with more players on court, and I think that's what we need to do. As SquashSkills, we're trying to give access to the coaching, make it easier to learn the sport, and then through the relationship with Squash Levels, we're trying to make it easier for players to track their improvement and know that they're progressing, and gamifying it a little bit. If you go for a 5k run, you run it in 28 minutes, next time you go run it and you run it in 27 minutes 30, you're seeing improvement. That's what I think Squash Levels can do for beginners and for players looking to strive and improve. So I think between skills and levels, we've got a nice balance in supporting the grassroots of the game, showing people how to improve, and then ultimately tracking that improvement as well. So I think my ambitions for Squash Skills are to get to a point where we are working really, really closely with all the different federations. You know, we want to develop these relationships. We want to work closer with the major organisations, and ultimately just give coaches the ability to manage their players as well. I think that's the bit that's been missing over the last 10 years of SquashSkills, is it's been us and the player, and I don't think we've had enough of a relationship with the coaches per se, but now I think we're going to give the coaches the tools to work with their players, and that's what I'm most excited about. So we're going to really join the dots. If that's happening through the federations, we're developing the relationships with the federations, then I don't see a reason why every single player in the world hasn't got some relationship with SquashSkills, whether that's just watching a video on social or, you know, using the diary management tool between a player and a coach. I think there's a huge opportunity here. So it's kind of more of the same, but leveraging technology in a different way, and, you know, just continuing to push forward. But I think we're in a good place right now, but I'm so excited about where we're going to be in the next 10 years. So to time with the 10th anniversary, we've gone all out and completely reimagined the tech stack. So we wanted to simplify things, and, you know, we've had lots of people talk about the need for apps, the need for offline viewing, but the need to be able to operate away from Wi-Fi. You know, if you're going down on court 6, bottom of the squash club, there's no Wi-Fi connection. Trying to watch SquashSkills video is always presented challenges. So we've actually split things out into 2 different apps. So we've got a coaching app, which is where you'll find the playlists and the videos where you can learn. And then we've got a training app, which is all about taking your sessions. This is all overseen by, you know, the web application, the website, where you've got your dashboard, and then you've got your coaching videos. But the idea was to have 2 lightweight apps that were really like quick and easy to use, not overly complicated, but gave you exactly what you want, rather than trying to build an app that housed everything, split it out into 2. So we've got the coaching app where you can watch videos, and then we've got the training app, which is just great. You know, it's got your ability to plan your diaries, to do your solo sessions, your pairs sessions, or your fitness sessions. It's got the ability to interface with your coach, so you can, you know, do your diary management there. You've got access to online on-demand libraries. You know, we've got literally hundreds of sessions covering everything related to squash-specific fitness and squash-specific solos and pairs drills as well. So, you know, we're just really, really excited by the new platform. The dashboard on the web platform has also got this interface with Squash Levels, so you're able to track your improvement. You know, SquashSkills is here to tell you how to improve, but then Levels is there to track that improvement as well. So we've tried to simplify things, break things out into a couple of apps, but give everybody what they've been asking for over the last 10 years. We've been constrained, we've been limited by our technology bill, and now finally it feels like the shackles are off, and we've got this opportunity to create something really, really special, and we're just super excited to share it with everybody. So our model doesn't change at all. We're very much a B2C offering. You know, we are a subscription business. We want to be able to support squash players all over the world. Just means that squash players who are members are just getting a huge amount more for their subscription than they have over the last 10 years. I like to think the content's been hugely valuable, but now the technology offering the ability to utilise that content in any situation, whether that be on court or on the bus, without a Wi-Fi connection, you know, being able to download content to an app, being able to access training sessions without a Wi-Fi connection, it's all going to become so much easier. So the model hasn't changed there. You know, we're going to be speaking to federations, we're going to be speaking to coaches and building those relationships. So there's a little bit more of a B2B model on the side of what we're doing, but fundamentally, you know, we're all about our subscribers, we're all about our members, and, you know, that offering hasn't changed. We're just delivering a huge amount more value, or I hope. I think with this new technology stack, the next 10 years is going to be hugely exciting. I think we've got an ability to put SquashSkills in the hands of so many more people, and we've got an opportunity to help so many more people, play the game better and get a better understanding of the game. I think the platform is going to give us the ability to reach new players. I think the players who are on the platform are going to take so much more from it. Hopefully word is going to spread, more and more people are going to use it. That helps us generate more revenue, which we can plough into further development of the platform. We need to go multilingual, we need to go multi-language, we need to improve subtitles, we want Spanish-speaking SquashSkills, we want French-speaking SquashSkills. So I think it's more of the same, but it's just going to be delivered in a far superior way. And we're going to keep working with our technology partners to improve the offering. Technology is evolving all the time. Every time you look at sports technology companies, you realise that there's new offerings coming all the time. So things are drastically shifting. APIs are allowing systems to connect. We're linking up to Apple Health, we're linking up to Fitbit. You're able to pull in your data from other systems. You're able to track your squash levels data within your SquashSkills profile. So I think we're going to see so much more of that. There's going to be a much more interconnected relationship between different organisations over the next 10 years. And ultimately that should just make us smarter squash players. We're going to be training smarter. We're going to be training with more information available. And hopefully we're all going to be improving at a much faster rate than we ever have as a result of the technology solutions that we're putting in place. It's all just going to make so much more sense now. People are going to be able to flip between SquashSkills and squash levels. They're going to know what's going on with their improvement. They're going to know what's going on with their recent matches. They're going to identify their strengths and weaknesses. They're going to know what they need to work on. They're going to be able to go and watch a playlist on the SquashSkills coaching app, and then they're going to be able to go and put that in practice on the SquashSkills training app. They're going to be able to go and find a relevant session, whether it be a solo or a pairs or a fitness session, through that identification and understanding what they need to work on. And ultimately then they're going to be able to go back to squash levels and they're going to see that improvement. That's going to be reflected in the squash level. So I think the synergy between the two platforms is immense, and then we're just going to create this really, really unified, joined-up experience that just makes the learning journey so much easier and so much simpler, and ultimately rewards people for putting hard work in. I think it's hard to say if there's one long-term goal in isolation. I think just the way the business started, there was no goal, and here we are, sat here 10 years later, talking about where we've got to. I think the plan to be in a similar situation in another 10 years, continually striving to evolve, using technology, leveraging technology, identifying what the trends are, identifying what the next opportunity is to improve the learning journey. Fundamentally, has to be what we're about. We got through the tricky years. Most companies don't make it past 3 years, right? Here we are 10 years later, so I'm feeling very confident that SquashSkills will still be an integral part of the squash community in 10 years' time. I'd like to think that by then we would have helped hundreds of thousands of players to have got better at the sport they love. We're in the tens of thousands at the moment, but I think we can take that to a whole new level, maybe even millions. It doesn't seem beyond the realms of possibility. So I think it's about continuing to work with the best players in the world, continuing to work with the best coaches in the world, continuing to build relationships, continuing to improve the offering to make it easier to learn the game, to continue to democratize the game and provide access to high-level coaching regardless of where people are. But more importantly, I want to build on what we've got and create deeper relationships, build the sense of community. I think squash is in a tough space as a sport at the moment, and we all need to work together, we need to pull together, we need interconnected systems that are speaking to each other, and we all need to be focusing on our areas of expertise. So I think SquashSkills and squash levels can be intrinsic part of that building of the global squash community and supporting that squash community so that we continue to have a really vibrant sport. The World Tour is in a fantastic place. The World Tour is going that way. I want SquashSkills to really help at the grassroots level of the sport, to make it easier to learn the game, to make it easier for new people to come into the sport. And I think that, coupled with squash levels and the relationships we're putting in place, is a major focus for us. So if we can be sat here in 10 years' time talking about a really, really unified global squash community that SquashSkills has helped build and create and support, then I'll be a very, very happy man. And I think that's what we need to ultimately strive for.